My name is Ivo Sotirov and I am here today at my home studio. In this video I want to talk about analog summing, and in particular I want to compare several different devices and show you my way of using them. Now the first device I want to talk about is the Antelope Audio Satori. Now this was actually built as a mastering grade monitor controller which features summing. The second unit I want to discuss is made by a German company called Tegeler audio manufacturer. This is their tube summing mixer and it has no other features other than summing. The one thing that's special about it though is that it has 40 channels, it has valves and it has output transformers, so it's going to slightly color the sound. In my opinion, the Satori is a little bit more transparent, it's clean and it's accurate, whereas the tube summing mixer colors the sound slightly more. It is still being built as a very transparent device, very versatile, so it can work across genres of music and it doesn't leave a big footprint over the music, but it has slightly more color, being a valve and a transformer device. The interface that I'm using in my home studio is the Orion 32 Plus. This is the third generation Orion interfaces. And a lot of people seem to be using that interface with the tube summing mixer by Tegeler as a combo. These two devices seem to complement each other quite well, and this is why so many engineers in professional studios and home environments like this one seem to choose that combo. The song we're going to be using today for that comparison is called Sippin', and it is by an artist called Kimberly Walker. Now that track was actually mixed at the Friary Studios on an SSL and it wasn't mixed in here. I then bounced all the individual stems, I imported them in this session so I can now run them through the different summing mixers, and I'm also going to show you the summing of Pro Tools without any of those devices so you can have a clear idea of what they bring to the table. Let's play it again. The way I've set it up at the moment is that I've divided all of those stems into 4 stereo groups. So all of my drums and percussion are going into 1 and 2, 3 and 4 is for the bass, 5 and 6 is for all the instrumentals, 7 and 8 is going to be vocals and effects. Now I know that specific setup doesn't do the tube summing mixer a lot of justice, as we're only feeding 8 channels out of the 40 available channels for summing. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just trying to compare the summing of the Satori with the Tegeler, and you can still kind of get an idea of the vibe and the color of that summing mixer. Now let's pick up the same section of the song. It's going to be the same loop. Now, in my personal opinion, the summing of Pro Tools is already very good. I have absolutely no problems with it, but I do feel like adding either of those two other summing mixers elevates the mix. It's a very subtle and quite a weird sensation, to be honest, but it sort of feels like the individual elements of the songs have a little bit more space around them. It has more space to breathe. The stereo picture becomes slightly wider. Now, the differences between those two summing devices, in my opinion, is that the Satori gives me a slightly cleaner and more punchier mix. It sounds a little bit more modern. The low end is slightly more extended for me. It's a little bit faster, a little bit tighter. Whereas the tube summing mixer just has a slightly different sound. It adds a little bit of color. I don't want to say warms up the sound because too many people use that phrase and everybody has a different meaning behind it. But what I am hearing is that the low end of the tube summing mixer becomes slightly rounder and the high end becomes more airy, it becomes more silky, which is actually a very common thing with valves. When you run sound through high quality valves, usually you get that airiness and that silkiness in the sound. And this is kind of what I'm getting for the tube summing mixer. So let's listen to those examples again. I do believe both of these devices are very useful, especially in a day and age like today where so many productions are digital. They're created in the box, they stay in the box. There's so many MIDI instruments. In situations like that, those devices can bring a little bit of that analog flavor back into the music. Now, I must say though that if you are chasing that analog sound specifically, I believe it's an accumulative effect. When we're running signals through different devices with transformers and valves and we're stacking those, we get that accumulative effect and that color. Now, when I want to get closer to that analog sound and to that color, what I usually do is that in the mixing process, I run individual stems and individual sources through different pieces of equipment that have those transformers and have those components that can color the sound. Sometimes I run signals through that 1176. It has two different modes with one featuring an input transformer. One of them has a more vintage sound and the other one has a more modern sound. And they just both sound very, very different. Another way to go is to use those color palettes made by DIY recording equipment. Now, the cool thing about those is that they're specifically designed with the intention of saturating and coloring the sound. They have individual color modules that can be changed inside the palette, and they feature many different sounds. Some of them have transformers, others have valves, some of them feature tape saturation. So it's a quite cool and affordable way to bring that color. Now back to those two summing mixers. Even though they sound slightly different and they both do a very similar thing, I have found a way to incorporate both of them into my workflow. I use them in a slightly unconventional way, but I do believe they complement each other. Now I'm gonna show you my mix bus chain and how I use both of them together. So normally what I like to do is have my summing in the Satori, and from there I take the signal into the Cream. That is also a unit made by Tegeler, and it is a stereo VCA compressor based on the SSL bus compressor with a Putec style stereo EQ. From here I finish off the chain with the tube summing mixer by Tegeler, and I'm only using it as a stereo coloration device. Now I know this doesn't do the TSM much justice because I'm not really using it for summing. I'm only using it as a stereo processor, and I know it wasn't built for that purpose. But what I've discovered is that those two pieces of kit right here, the Tegeler Cream with the tube summing mixer, are a fantastic combo. And based on how you put them in the chain, based on the order you use them in your chain, gets very different results. When I use the tube summing mixer after the cream, what I'm getting is that the valves smooth out the top end of the cream, because I am opening the high end of the cream. I'm usually boosting it, so the valves make sure there's no harshness, and they give everything this airy quality. And also the low end boost of the cream, when it's followed by the tube summing mixer, the low end just becomes slightly thicker and it becomes rounder, and just the whole mix starts to become a little bit more dense. So now I'm going to demonstrate how I use all of those devices together in my Mix Plus chain.
Realize that the grass isn't greener. I'll be here in the shade, sipping my lemonade while you screaming my name to her. Oh, she thought you were safe, thought that you could escape. Realize that the grass isn't greener. Sipping on my lemonade.
Now, whether you're looking to improve the monitoring and summing of a budget desk like mine, or you're just looking to bring a little bit more character and flavor into those digital stereo recordings, I believe both of those devices can serve a great purpose.